Have you ever felt someone quietly trying to control the air in the room, talking louder, standing closer, testing how far they can push you before you break? Power plays rarely look like battles. They sound like calm voices hiding sharp edges. Most people react. The Stoic doesn't. He watches, waits, and wins without force. Stay. This lesson will change how you hold power forever. As we step into the first rule, imagine this. You're in a room where words are flying like arrows. Some are subtle, coated in politeness. Others are sharp, meant to pierce. A person across the table interrupts you, leans in just a little too close, trying to tilt the balance of control. Most people would react. They'd defend, explain, or fight to reclaim their voice. But that's where the game is lost. The Stoic sees the moment differently. He knows that the first one to react is already following someone else's rhythm. Power games begin not in action, but in reaction. Every provocation is bait, and every emotional impulse is the leash that follows it. When you take the bait, you give your opponent what they want. Proof that they can reach you, shake you, command you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It sounds simple, almost too simple, but it's the entire foundation of Stoic control. You cannot stop people from provoking you, but you can decide whether to let them pull the strings. I remember watching a manager once, a quiet man with calm eyes, get cornered in a meeting by a louder, more aggressive colleague. The room held its breath. The aggressor spoke with speed and heat, trying to prove a point, his words bouncing off the walls like thrown stones. The quiet man didn't flinch. He didn't match the tone. He simply leaned back, folded his hands, and listened in silence. That silence wasn't weakness. It was a wall. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, even slow. Every word carried weight. The storm he faced had already burned itself out before he even began to speak. That day, he didn't just win the argument, he owned the room. This is the essence of the first rule. Never react. Observe. When someone seeks to control you through emotion, don't give them the satisfaction of a visible response. Instead, become the still water that reflects everything but absorbs nothing. The more still you remain, the more their chaos exposes itself. People reveal their motives when you give them silence. They rush to fill the void, to explain, to justify. And in that rush, they expose the truth that was hidden beneath their noise. Think of yourself as a sentinel standing at the gate of your own mind. You decide what gets in and what stays out. Anger, defensiveness, pride, all of them are invaders, dressed as protectors. They claim to fight for you, but they betray you the moment you let them lead. Epictetus warned that it's not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. If someone insults you, the insult only lives as long as you feed it. If someone dismisses you, the dismissal only stings if you grant it meaning. Observation creates distance, and distance creates strength. But observation doesn't mean apathy. It's not about becoming cold or detached from the world. It's about seeing clearly before acting. There's power in the pause between what happens and how you respond. In that brief silence, you reclaim your freedom. You move from being a puppet of circumstance to being the craftsman of your own reaction. The Stoics called this the discipline of perception, seeing things as they are, not as your emotions paint them. In modern life, this discipline is tested everywhere, in meetings, arguments, relationships, even online. Someone challenges you publicly, trying to provoke a reaction. The crowd waits, your pride burns for release, but you hold, you breathe, you let them finish. Then, calmly, you ask one question that turns the weight of the moment back on them. Suddenly, they're the ones exposed. The power they sought to take from you has turned against them. The paradox of control is that you only gain it when you stop chasing it. Those who react seek to dominate others. Those who observe dominate themselves. And the one who masters himself will always lead, even in silence. As Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." Freedom begins when you no longer dance to another's tune. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember, your composure is not emptiness, it's a weapon. Let their storm rage, let their words crash. Step back, observe, and let them reveal themselves. That's how the game ends, on your terms. And that's when they realize you were never the opponent. You were the mirror. In this first rule lies the foundation of all others, because before you can win without force, you must first refuse to fight their way. The calm observer doesn't chase power. He becomes it, and from here, everything begins to shift. Moving into the second rule, picture this. The air feels heavy, like the tension before a storm. Someone raises their voice, trying to provoke a reaction. Their anger fills the space, demanding that you meet it, match it, drown in it. You feel your pulse quicken, your breath shorten. Every instinct in you screams to defend, to correct, to prove your worth. But the Stoic within knows something deeper. The louder the chaos outside, the quieter you must become within. This is where calm becomes your armor. When others try to pull you into their storm, you remain anchored. The Stoics compared the mind to a rock, unmoved no matter how many waves strike it. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it. Those words aren't poetry, they're survival. In every power play, emotion is the weapon, and if you can't master yours, someone else will. The Stoic doesn't fight emotion with emotion. He lets others burn themselves out while he conserves his flame. I once met a man in a negotiation who understood this perfectly. The room was full of impatience, people raising voices, throwing accusations, slamming hands on tables. But he sat still, his breathing steady, his eyes calm. He waited until the noise reached its peak, then said just one sentence, "Let's return to reason." In that moment, silence fell. His calmness felt heavier than their anger. He didn't overpower them by force. He disarmed them by presence. That's what emotional neutrality does. It doesn't resist the fire. It denies it oxygen. When you learn to hold still while others tremble, you become the center of gravity in any room. People can't help but feel it. They may not understand why, but they sense that you cannot be shaken. And when someone cannot shake you, they must respect you. Seneca said that anger is like a collapsing roof. It crushes the one who carries it. So why stand beneath it? Why let another person's fury dictate the rhythm of your soul? Here's a truth most people miss. Emotion is contagious, but so is calm. When you hold your peace long enough, the room begins to mirror you. Even your opponents feel the discomfort of their own chaos against your stillness. They may mock you for not reacting, but inwardly they envy your control. They wish they could command themselves as you do. Every second you remain calm, you remind them who truly leads. But neutrality doesn't mean suppression. It's not about pretending not to feel. It's about deciding which feelings deserve your energy. The Stoics never taught emotional denial. They taught emotional discipline. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom begins the moment you stop being a slave to the noise of others. When provoked, breathe. Feel the emotion rise. Name it. Then let it pass, like watching a cloud drift across the sky. Don't hold it. Don't fight it. Just observe it go. There will be moments when silence feels unbearable, when every cell in your body wants to shout, explain, defend, but that's precisely the test. Your stillness in those moments is what separates you from the ordinary. Most people fight to win arguments. The Stoic fights to keep peace within himself. And when the inner battle is won, no external battle can touch him. I remember a friend once told me he lost his job after an unfair accusation. Instead of arguing, he simply said, "If this is my test, I'll meet it with dignity." Weeks later, the truth surfaced and he was offered his position back, higher this time. His composure had done what anger never could. That's the paradox of neutrality. It looks passive, but it's the most active form of strength. Emotional neutrality doesn't make you less human. It makes you sovereign over your humanity. You still feel anger, disappointment, or pride, but you choose their timing. You choose their voice. That's how you shift from being a participant in chaos to being its observer. And when you can observe, you can decide. That's where your power lies. So the next time someone raises their voice, remember, storms make noise, not progress. You don't need to match their energy. Let them spin in circles while you stand still. Let their chaos reveal their weakness while your calm becomes your crown. Power doesn't belong to the loudest man in the room. It belongs to the one who can stay silent and still hold the ground. And from this silence, from this mastery of emotion, a new kind of authority begins to emerge. The authority not to control others, but to control yourself. That is where respect is born. And that is where we go next. Advancing to the third rule, imagine this moment. Someone corners you in a conversation, not with aggression, but with subtlety. They twist your words, steer the topic, and suddenly you're defending yourself in a story they've written for you. You didn't notice the shift. It felt harmless at first, but now you're fighting on their terms, in their frame. This is how most people lose power, not by force, but by being pulled into the wrong battlefield. The Stoic doesn't fight where he's told. He chooses the ground. Power games thrive on framing. Every manipulator, every strategist knows this. Control the story, and you control the outcome. The moment you let someone define what the argument is about, you've already lost half the war. Marcus Aurelius warned, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Change the frame, and the power changes hands. You don't have to win their argument, you have to redefine it. I once saw this play out during a heated board meeting. Two colleagues argued over a failed project. One kept pushing blame, using emotion, sarcasm, and exaggeration to trap the other into defending himself. But the second man didn't take the bait. Instead, he smiled slightly and said, "That's one way to look at it, but what matters now is what we'll do next." Instantly, the tension dissolved. He shifted the frame from accusation to action, from past to future. Everyone in the room turned toward him. The aggressor was left hanging, his momentum gone. It wasn't luck, it was mastery of perspective. Stoicism teaches this same principle. The way you perceive an event determines its power over you. Epictetus called it the discipline of assent, the ability to decide what thoughts deserve your agreement. When someone tries to provoke you into an emotional debate, you don't need to argue, you just refuse to assent. You mentally step out of the frame they've set and build your own. That's not evasion, that's leadership. Think of a skilled martial artist. When struck, he doesn't resist head-on. He redirects the force. The Stoic mind does the same with words. When someone says, "You're not capable," don't waste energy proving them wrong. Reframe it. Maybe. But let's see what I can learn from this. When someone mocks your calmness as weakness, reframe it. Calmness is control. Control is strength. Suddenly, their attack turns into your affirmation. The frame has flipped. But reframing doesn't mean sugarcoating. It's not pretending the world is kind. It's seeing it as it is and still choosing your lens. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." A small insult can feel like a deep wound if you let it live rent-free in your mind. But if you redefine it, a mirror showing someone else's insecurity, it loses its sting. The same moment that once felt like defeat becomes proof of your composure. A friend once told me about his first time leading a team. One co-worker, older and more experienced, kept undermining him subtly, correcting him in public, adding sarcastic comments. The young man tried defending himself, but every word made him look smaller. One day, he changed his approach. When the co-worker interrupted again, he simply said, "That's a fair point. I'll consider it." And then he continued his presentation, calm and steady. The attack fizzled. The crowd's attention returned to him. Later, the co-worker's influence began to fade, not because he was confronted, but because the young man stopped reacting inside the frame he set. That's how quiet people win loud battles. You don't need to dominate others to hold power. You just need to stop giving them your focus. In every conversation, ask yourself, who's defining the story right now, me or them? Once you see the invisible frames people build around you, you can walk right through them. The Stoic doesn't waste energy proving truth to those who don't want to see it. He acts, speaks, and moves from clarity, not defense. And that's why his words carry more weight than noise ever could. Power, when grounded in clarity, is unshakable. It doesn't rush to correct others. It doesn't beg to be understood. It stands, and the world adjusts around it. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm of accusations, step back and ask, whose ground am I standing on? If it's not yours, take one breath, one pause, and shift the frame. Because real dominance isn't about winning debates. It's about owning your context. The Stoic doesn't just survive the game, he rewrites it. And in doing so, he moves from being a piece on the board to becoming the one who decides how the game is played. From here, the silence he carries becomes his sharpest strategy, and that's where we go next. Entering the fourth rule, the room falls silent. The air is heavy with unspoken tension. Two people stare at each other across a table, each waiting for the other to break the quiet first. One twitches, coughs, fills the air with nervous words. The other stays still, calm, composed. And just like that, without saying a thing, he wins. This is the hidden art of power. The ability to use silence as a weapon sharper than speech. Most people fear silence. It exposes them. It makes them feel small, uncertain, naked before their own thoughts. So they rush to fill it with noise, excuses, and explanations that weaken them. But the Stoic learns to stand comfortably inside that stillness. To him, silence isn't emptiness. It's space. Space to think. Space to lead, space to let others reveal themselves. As Epictetus said, if you wish to improve, be content to appear ignorant in some matters. In other words, let others speak while you observe. Let them rush while you calculate. Once, I watched a friend handle a confrontation that could have easily turned ugly. A co-worker accused him publicly of a mistake he didn't make. Everyone expected him to argue, to defend himself, but he didn't. He stood there, silent, eyes steady. The accuser's words echoed for a few seconds too long, the noise hanging awkwardly in the air. People began to look at him instead, the silent one, the calm one. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but firm. "Are you finished?" The entire room shifted in his favor. His silence had turned the accuser's certainty into doubt. That's how silence works. It lets others destroy their own position while you preserve yours. The Stoics understood that noise is often the language of insecurity. Those who feel weak shout the loudest, as if sound could replace substance. But calm silence, deliberate and measured, creates gravity. It draws attention without demand. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Silence is that revenge. When others lose composure, your restraint becomes their mirror. It exposes what they cannot control. Silence also teaches patience. In a world obsessed with immediacy, the man who can pause holds a kind of timeless power. He's not in a hurry to prove himself, to correct others, or to be understood. He knows that truth doesn't need defending. It reveals itself in time. The Stoic doesn't chase validation. He lets his composure speak for him. Seneca said, "To be calm is the highest achievement of the self." In silence, you become untouchable, not because you dominate, but because nothing external can disturb your inner order. There's a story of a general in ancient Rome who was falsely accused of betrayal. When summoned before the Senate, he stood quietly as the charges were read aloud. Others shouted, pleaded, cursed, but he said nothing. When asked why he wouldn't defend himself, he simply replied, "My life has been my defense." The Senate fell silent. His dignity spoke louder than any argument could. This is what silence does. It transforms self-control into presence, and presence into undeniable respect. Silence is not withdrawal, it's precision. It's the deliberate choice to say only what is necessary and nothing more. Every unnecessary word spends energy you could use to hold authority. The Stoic knows that power leaks through careless speech. When you say less, your words begin to weigh more. People lean in, they listen harder. They fill in the blanks with their own imagination, and that imagination often serves you more than your explanations ever could. But silence is not easy. It demands that you wrestle your ego into submission. The ego wants to react, to prove, to win now. The Stoic plays a longer game. He knows that every silence plants a seed. In time, it grows into credibility, respect, and control. Those who rush for quick victories burn out. Those who stay quiet, deliberate, and still outlast them all. When someone tries to bait you into chaos, let silence answer for you. When you feel the urge to speak too soon, pause. Let the moment breathe. The one who can stand calmly in silence owns not just the room, but himself. Remember, storms roar, but the mountain says nothing, and yet it remains unmoved. So from this stillness, a new kind of power emerges. Not the kind that shouts to be seen, but the kind that commands attention without asking for it. And that power, silent and steady, becomes the foundation for what comes next, the art of presence itself. At this stage, the silence you've learned begins to transform into something larger, presence. It's no longer just the absence of words or motion, it's the quiet gravity that bends the room without effort. Picture this. You walk into a space where voices overlap, energy is scattered, tension floats like dust. Yet when you step forward, people sense it before they see you. Conversations soften, eyes turn. It's not charisma, it's not charm, it's command through composure. That's the art of projecting calm authority. the Stoic way of holding the room without ever raising your voice. We live in an age where everyone fights to be heard, yet the ones who speak less often hold the most weight. Presence isn't built through performance, it's built through consistency, through the way you stand, breathe, and move, through how you look at someone when they talk, how you pause before replying, how you choose stillness over noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. The same is true for respect. Don't demand it, embody it." I once met a leader who didn't need titles to be followed. In meetings, he rarely spoke first. When he did, his tone was measured, deliberate. People leaned forward just to hear. He didn't rush to fill silences. He allowed them to work for him. And when conflict arose, he never mirrored the chaos. He absorbed it. His calm was contagious. Afterward, someone told me, when he's in the room, everyone straightens their back. That's presence. It's not about size or authority. It's about centeredness so deep that it steadies everyone around you. The Stoics believed that dignity begins from within. You can't fake calmness. The body always betrays the mind. When your thoughts are scattered, your gestures follow. When your emotions are steady, your energy speaks before your lips do. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." So when you enter a room, don't focus on impressing anyone. Focus on embodying your values, discipline, clarity, restraint. People don't follow those who seek attention. They follow those who command respect by needing nothing from anyone. A story comes to mind of a young man who once worked under a harsh supervisor, someone who tried to intimidate through tone and posture. Instead of arguing or shrinking, the young man chose a different weapon: composure. He stood tall, maintained eye contact, and answered with brevity and calm. At first, the supervisor mocked him for being too quiet, but over time, something shifted. The mockery stopped. The insults turned into questions. The young man hadn't fought for respect. He'd earned it, word by word, pause by pause. By mastering his presence, he rewrote the balance of power. There's a moment in every interaction when people decide whether to respect or dismiss you. It's rarely what you say, it's how you exist in that moment. Do you rush? Do you fidget? Do you seek approval in their eyes? Or do you remain centered, anchored in your own purpose? Seneca once said, "A great man is one who is superior to injury." The same applies to dignity. The Stoic presence cannot be injured by opinion. He doesn't shrink when ignored or swell when praised. He stays constant, and that constancy is magnetic. Presence is not dominance. It's not posturing or intimidation. It's quiet certainty. It's the refusal to chase validation because you already carry your own. You become, in essence, the unmoved point around which the noise spins. When you stop competing for space, space starts to open for you. That's the paradox of true power. It doesn't shout, it simply is. But to hold such presence, you must live deliberately. Every gesture must serve intention. Every word must match thought. When you speak, let each sentence fall like a stone into still water, clear, weighted, and deliberate. Don't rush to fill the air. Let silence complete your sentences. The greatest leaders in history knew this. Control the tempo, and you control perception. And here's the truth. When your presence is rooted in calm, even your silence speaks in full sentences. The room listens not because you demand it, but because your stillness demands respect. That's the ultimate authority, the kind that requires no defense. So stand tall, not as one seeking approval, but as one embodying mastery. Let your calmness be your crown, your composure your weapon. Because in the end, people remember not the loudest voice, but the one that made them feel steady in the storm. And as we move to the final rule, this strength, the kind that needs no noise, will become the foundation for something far greater, the quiet endurance of those who win without force. From here, the final rule unfolds, the one that separates short-lived victories from enduring power. Picture a battlefield after the noise has died down. The proud stand over ashes, celebrating a win that cost them peace. The wise have already walked away, untouched. This is where mastery begins, not in defeating others, but in mastering yourself. The Stoic doesn't chase victory. He cultivates stability, because when you stop needing to win, you become impossible to defeat. There's quiet strength in the man who can lose a moment and still keep his center. While others burn themselves out, proving a point, he protects his composure like a fortress. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You will become invincible if you never enter into a contest in which victory is not in your power. Never play games designed by others. Never trade your calm for a fleeting sense of validation." The Stoic plays only one game, the discipline of the self. His triumph lies not in applause, but in alignment with reason, with virtue, with peace. We live in an age addicted to reaction. Every word online, every provocation in life, every challenge whispers, "Prove yourself." But the Stoic sees the trap. The one who reacts is ruled by the world. The one who remains still rules himself. Epictetus taught, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings." That's not weakness, it's strategy. When you turn inward, you reclaim control. The battle shifts from chaos to clarity. You stop trying to calm the storm, and instead, you learn to steady your hands. I once met a craftsman who lived this truth. He ran a small workshop surrounded by ambitious competitors, people who worked faster, louder, hungrier for success. They mocked his pace, called him outdated. He smiled and said, "Growth means nothing if it costs your steadiness." Years passed. His competitors rose quickly and collapsed just as fast. He endured quietly with steady hands and clear purpose. Real power doesn't rush, it doesn't chase, it endures. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free," and freedom for the Stoic is independence from the chaos of others. You can walk through storms and not carry their thunder inside you. That's stability, not stillness, but movement without losing your axis. Like a soldier marching calmly through the noise of war, the Stoic moves through life, guided not by impulse, but by principle. A friend once faced public humiliation at work. A failure that wasn't his fault was blamed on him. Most people would have fought, shouted, defended themselves. He didn't. He stayed silent for a week. When he finally spoke, he laid out every fact calmly, without bitterness. The truth surfaced on its own. His calm dismantled every accusation. Later, he was promoted. Not because he fought harder, but because he remained composed while others lost control. Stability is not surrender, it's the highest form of command. Life constantly tests your center. People provoke you, situations push you, but you always have a choice. React and lose your balance, or pause and keep your power. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "If you are pained by anything external, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." Stability begins when you stop labeling every wave as an enemy. You let life flow, and you steer with reason, not emotion. Most drown in reaction. The Stoic floats through restraint. There's a story about an old sailor who, during a violent storm, held the ship's wheel with calm hands while others panicked. When asked how he stayed so composed, he said, "You can't calm the sea, you can only steady your hands. That is stoicism in motion. The sea will always rage, the world will always test you, but steadiness, that's yours to command." Choosing stability over victory doesn't mean you reject ambition, it means you refine it. The Stoic no longer seeks to win every battle. He seeks to endure every season. He no longer defines himself through recognition. His satisfaction comes from alignment, with purpose, with integrity, with peace. While others rise and fall with emotion, he stands anchored in clarity. That's why his power lasts longer than theirs. Empires built on noise always fall. Their echoes destroy them long before their enemies do. But the man who builds on discipline becomes timeless. You can't manipulate him, he doesn't hunger for control. You can't provoke him, he doesn't chase approval. He walks through conflict untouched because his composure is his armor. His strength is invisible but undeniable. Imagine a candle in a storm. The wind screams, the trees bend, but the flame doesn't fight. It flickers, bends, and still burns. That's the Stoic's way. Adapt, but don't break. Bend, but don't lose your form. The flame survives not by overpowering the wind, but by cooperating with its rhythm. That is endurance. That is mastery. So choose stability over victory. Choose peace over control. Those who build their strength on chaos will always need chaos to feel powerful. But the one anchored in calm wins by endurance. His composure becomes his crown. His silence becomes his statement. And as we close this final rule, remember this: power that depends on force fades. Power that flows from order never does. Let others chase noise. You stay rooted in reason. Let others reach for control. You remain unshaken. Because in the end, the Stoic doesn't conquer the world, he transcends it. He becomes the still point in a spinning world, the calm flame that no storm can extinguish. That is how you win without force. That is how you become unbreakable. Because in mastering yourself, you no longer fight the world, you guide it. And that, the Stoics knew, is the only victory worth having. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet choice to hold your ground, to respond with clarity instead of impulse, to walk away without losing your calm. The Stoics understood that strength is not about dominating others, but about mastering yourself. Every time you stay still when others try to provoke you, every time you choose reason over rage, you prove that control is already yours. That is how you win without force. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe and stay connected to more lessons that strengthen your inner calm and sharpen your mind. The Stoic journey is not about perfection. It's about returning to discipline each time the world pulls you away from it. In the comments, write 3 simple words: I stay calm. Let it be your reminder that power begins within. Remember, every challenge is a quiet test of balance. Each moment of restraint is a victory unseen but deeply felt. Keep training your mind to remain steady amid the noise. Because when you no longer need to prove your strength, you've already won. Stay steady, stay awake, and prepare for what comes next. The deeper layers of calm that no one can take from you.